Here's the model form or kata of okuri eri jime. Reach under your opponent's left armpit with your left hand and pull his left lapel down. Reach around his neck with your right hand and grab high up on his left lapel while your left hand grabs the opposite lapel. Apply the choke by drawing your right arm around his neck while pulling down with your left. Here's how to apply the choke from behind an opponent who's on all fours. And this is a demonstration of how to approach from the side when your opponent is on all fours. By bringing your legs around, you can bear down with your upper body to restrain his movements. Use your right arm to prevent him from moving forward and apply the choke. This is a very effective technique since you're holding him in place with your right elbow while applying the choke. Approach your opponent who's on all fours from the front, roll over and apply the stranglehold. Be sure to grab his collar so that your hold around his neck tightens as you roll over. When facing your opponent, put your left arm around his neck to restrain him and apply the stranglehold. Take note of the left hand and the use of the right leg in turning the opponent over. Instead of rolling over sideways, you can also roll backwards. When rolling backwards, make full use of your legs and be sure to maintain contact with your opponent's body. This is a stranglehold which used to be called jigoku jime. Lock your legs around one of your opponent's arms and pull him down on his back to restrain him and draw your left arm around his neck. Lock his arm between your legs and roll forward to apply the stranglehold. Roll forward on your own accord as soon as you lock your legs around his arm. Besides applying pressure with both hands, you can also use your leg to make the stranglehold more effective. Drawing your leg across his face is against the rules. Let's take another look at the action. This is a variation in which you lock your legs around your opponent's arm and roll forward to go into the stranglehold, placing one leg around his neck. Let's watch several matches in which Yasuhiro Yamashita performs okuri eri jime. The final of the 1981 World Championships, he applies a stranglehold to Rezko of Poland from a kosotogake. Yamashita says he was able to execute an effective hold because he grabbed high up on his opponent's lapel with his right hand, while his left hand pulled hard at the right lapel. And now the 1983 Moscow World Championships. Watch Yamashita's right hand. He has a firm grip on his opponent's collar while he restrains his opponent's wrist with his left hand. By doing so, he succeeds in applying the hold right away. Here, Yamashita avoids his opponent's seoi nage and goes straight into an okuri eri jime. Notice his timing and moves. His left hand was decisive in applying the hold. He managed to pull tightly at his opponent's collar all the way through. Grip your opponent's left lapel with your right hand, as in okuri eri jime. Slide your left hand under his left armpit and control his left arm by pushing it up. Then apply your left arm at the nape of his neck to execute the stranglehold. Pushing his left arm up from below the elbow makes it difficult for him to resist and makes it easier for you to apply the hold. When your opponent is on all fours, approach him from behind and roll over to execute the hold. Let's take a look at this in slow motion. And here's how to approach your opponent from the front to apply kata hajime. For kata tejime, hold your opponent down on his back, grasp his collar from the side with one hand using a grip with the thumb inside and apply pressure to his throat. While grasping his collar with one hand, grip the side of his belt with the other and lean forward to tighten the hold. This is an example of using kata tejime when your opponent is on all fours. Approach from the front and use your right hand. Or you may choose to use your left hand. Pull him close towards you and apply pressure to his throat. The important thing is to restrain his upper body with the inside of your right knee to stop him from rolling over and escaping. For ryo tejime, grasp your opponent's collar with both hands with the thumbs inside and apply pressure to his neck with your fists. This is a ryo tejime applied from a standing position. In order to apply the choke, pull down and twist your fists inwards. And this is how to apply the choke when you're on your back. The main point is to lock his neck between your legs to keep him from pulling you up. This also makes it easier for you to use your hands. This is a sode guru majime applied from under. This involves grasping the sleeves of your jacket with both hands to trap your opponent's head between your arms. Let's take another look at the action. This is how to apply the technique from above. The important thing is to bear down with your body and pull him towards you as you apply pressure with your arms. This is how to apply the hold from behind. This is a sode guru majime applied from below. Notice that both arms move at the same time. Pull his head towards you. As soon as he resists and raises his head, slip your left hand under his chin and apply the hold. To apply tsukomijime, grip your opponent's collar from the front and apply pressure to the neck with your hands. Grasping his left collar with your right hand, bring it underneath his right collar. You can also use a grip with the fingers inside and bring your right hand over or under his right collar to apply the hold. And now for a variation commonly known as necktie jime. Clutch both collars at the bottom of his neck with your right hand, while the left hand grips the right collar and pulls down. Sankakujime is a strangling technique in which you lock your legs around your opponent's neck and under his arm to form a triangle and apply pressure to the neck. When applying this technique from behind, the use of your legs is important, especially the heel of the leg on top. Twisting the heel outwards like this allows you to squeeze more tightly with your left leg. When your opponent is attempting a yoko shihogatame, you can apply sankakujime from under. Quickly bring your left leg around his neck and apply pressure by forming a triangle with your legs. Here's how to apply the technique when your opponent is on all fours. Once you wrap your legs around him in a triangle, roll over and quickly raise yourself so that your body is facing him. This will prevent him from escaping the hold. Take note of how the legs form a triangle around his neck. You can also apply pressure to the neck without raising your body. To make the hold more effective, your legs should form a flattened triangle. The use of dojime is prohibited in randori and in competition. When your opponent attacks from below, wrap your legs around his waist and lock your ankles together. Pull him towards you with both hands and apply the choke with your legs. When your opponent is on all fours, roll him over to apply the choke. Kansetsu waza involve using your hands, arms or legs to twist, stretch or bend your opponent's joints. In competition, you may only apply kansetsu waza to your opponent's elbow joints. Ude garami is a technique in which you use your arms to twist your opponent's arm backwards in either direction at the elbow. When your opponent thrusts his arm out, grab his wrist and twist his arm backwards. His upper arm should be at a right angle with his body, and his forearm should also be bent 90 degrees. This is an example of how to twist your opponent's forearm inside. The elbow should be bent to form a right angle. This shows how to apply an arm lock by stretching his elbow. Enter into a tate shihogatame and apply an arm lock by stretching his elbow. Place your left arm underneath your opponent's elbow, using it as a fulcrum to stretch his elbow. This is how to lock your opponent's arm when he attempts to hold you down. One way of doing this is to take his forearm and twist it behind his back. The other way is to take his forearm from below and push it up over his shoulder. Use your right leg to stop your opponent from rolling over and escaping. This shows how to control your opponent's forearm by stretching the elbow. This is an arm lock applied by bending the elbow. Here's how to apply ude garami from a standing position. Just before grappling with your opponent, take his arm and bend it backwards as you force him down. If your opponent raises his arm, take the opportunity of this to force it up and lock his elbow joint, throwing him down as in Osoto Otoshi. Let's watch Hideyuki Sekine apply ude garami. His opponent has managed to lock his legs around Sekine's. To avoid this attempt at osai komi, Sekine slips his left wrist under his opponent's elbow and uses it as a fulcrum to stretch his elbow and apply ude garami. Ude hishigi juji gatame is an elbow lock achieved by taking your opponent's wrist and trapping his forearm between your thighs to stretch it back. Bend one knee and place it over your opponent's neck to restrain him. Place the tip of the other leg against his back near his armpit and press with your hips as you stretch his arm. Stretch his arm fully so that he can't bend, or stretch his elbow and tighten your knees to trap the arm between your thighs. The lock will be easier to apply if you take your opponent's wrist so that the thumb is turned upwards. This shows how to restrain his neck. And now going on from a Yoko Shihogatame. After taking his arm with both hands, you may need to let go of one hand so that you can control his legs, depending on his movements. This shows how to apply the lock on your opponent as he attempts to rise. Stretch your hips to prevent him from getting up and apply the lock. Here's what to do if your opponent attempts to lift you up. Take advantage of his action to stop him from standing and use your left leg to force him down so that you can apply the lock. This is how to apply the lock when your opponent is kneeling between your legs. The thing to remember here is to place one leg on the mat and turn your body around so that it forms a cross with your opponent's. And this is what to do when your opponent attempts a seoi-nage from a low position. Step over whichever arm your opponent uses to pull you and stretch it to apply the lock. This is how to attack an opponent who's on all fours. The main points are to lock your legs around your opponent's neck and grab hold of the tip of his foot so that you can throw him on his back. This is a match from the 1981 World Championships in the Netherlands. The final in the 78-kilogram division is between Adams of Britain and Japan's Kase. Let's watch Adams go from a seoi-nage to a juji-gatame, a technique he excels in. He attempts to apply the lock by turning Kase on his back. Failing, he makes Kase roll forward and succeeds in applying juji-gatame. This shows that you have to react according to your opponent's movements. Los Angeles Olympic champion Matsuoka applies a seoi-nage followed by a juji-gatame. Although his seoi-nage was successful, he went on to apply a katame waza, showing his remarkable spirit. The 1991 world champion Tadanori Koshino performs a tomoe-nage followed by an ude hishigi juji-gatame. This is a good example of how a katame waza is used to deal the final blow. Here's Koshino again, attacking his opponent with a combination of osai-komi and juji-gatame. From the 1991 World Championships, here's the final match in the 95-kilogram and over category. Kozorotov of Russia demonstrates a well-executed ude hishigi juji-gatame. In ude hishigi, ude gatame, you pull your opponent's wrist and lodge it between your neck and shoulder so that the arm is stretched and twisted, and then press down with both hands on the elbow. This is how to apply the technique when your opponent attacks from the feet. Use your legs to defend yourself and apply pressure on his elbow. You can also assume a more aggressive approach, using your elbows to restrain his arm. Let's take a closer look. Wrap your arms around your opponent's arm and trap it between your neck and shoulder. You can also apply the lock by twisting his elbow and pressing it against your chest. This shows how to restrain your opponent's surite, or lifting arm, just before grappling. When your opponent attempts to grab the back of your collar, seize the moment to trap his arm between your neck and shoulder. In order to restrain your opponent's hikite, or pulling arm, wrap your arms around his upper arm and press down. Let's take a closer look at that action. Here's how to apply the lock from a Yoko Shiho Gatame. The point is to place your entire weight on your opponent's arm. Let's watch Naoya Ogawa apply an ude gatame. Failing to execute a kesa gatame, he modified the hold to an ude gatame. Ude hishigi hiza gatame is an arm lock applied by trapping the wrist in your armpit or holding it with one hand, pressing down on the elbow with your knee to twist and stretch the arm. Besides using your knee, you must also press the tip of your foot against your opponent's hips and control him with your lower body. The tip of your foot should be on his belt. This is a close-up of the arm lock. This is how to apply the arm lock from a hon kesa gatame. Place the arm you're holding across your inner thigh and use the knee of the other leg to apply pressure on the elbow. When your opponent attacks you from the feet, pull him down and apply the arm lock. The method is the same as in suriage, a technique in kimi no kata. The main feature of this technique is that you rest your entire weight on your opponent's elbow. When your opponent attempts to raise your legs, utilize his force to apply the arm lock. To do this, grab his wrist to prevent him from getting away and hook your foot under his knee, using your leg as a lever to apply pressure on his arm. In this variation, you apply leverage on your opponent's arm to bend it backwards, using his elbow as the fulcrum. Twist your body to the side as you apply pressure to his elbow with your leg. Let's take another look at this. You can also sit up and apply pressure to the elbow with your knee. Sit up and control your opponent's wrist using your weight to bear down on his arm. To perform ude hishigi waki gatame, use both hands to get a grip on one of your opponent's wrists from the side and trap his arm in your armpit. Stretch the arm out while twisting it backwards at the elbow. This is how to apply the technique from a standing position. Speed is important. Apply the lock as soon as you get a hold on his wrist. It is a penalty to throw yourself on the mat. Here's how to apply the lock from a kuzure kami shiho gatame. Grab your opponent's arm, taking advantage of his attempt to escape, and apply pressure with your entire weight. This is how to execute the lock from a kuzure kami shiho gatame, combining the arm lock with a stranglehold. After trapping his arm in your armpit, wrap your leg around his waist to restrain him. The final match in the 1985 World Championships in Seoul for the 95 kg and over division. Hitoshi Saito of Japan meets South Korea's Cho Young-chul. Soon after the start of the match, Cho applies a waki gatame, which causes Saito to dislocate his left elbow, forcing him to withdraw. The referees had to consult as to whether Cho's action was against the rules. Saito applies an uchimata to break his opponent's balance. He then immediately continues his attack by applying a kansetsu waza to his opponent's right arm. And now for a look at an ude hishigi wakigatame that will be given a penalty. If you throw yourself down on the floor from a standing position while applying a technique such as ude hishigi wakigatame, you will lose by a penalty. In ude hishigi haragatame, you grip one of your opponent's wrists from the side, using either hand, and use your stomach to apply pressure to his elbow. Lock the elbow by straightening, twisting, or bending the arm. To apply the lock in the manner of kime no kata, stretch his arm out and lock the elbow as soon as you get a grip on his wrist. To apply the lock from a kuzure kesagatame, stretch your opponent's arm and bear down with your stomach. This shows how to lock the elbow by bending the arm and pressing down with your stomach. Let's take another look at this. This is a haragatame applied from a yoko shiho gatame. Twist your opponent's left arm and pull it forward. Apply pressure to the shoulder and elbow with your stomach. This technique can be applied to your opponent when he's face down. Catch his forearm with one leg and straighten out or twist the arm to lock the elbow. The right leg is used in this demonstration. And now the left leg. Catch his forearm in a quick movement and control his arm. Applying a stranglehold while doing so will help make the lock even more effective. From a kuzure kesagatame, you can also lock the elbow by catching his arm in between your thighs. The moment you see him stretching his arm, seize the opportunity to trap it between your thighs. Ashigatame is one of Hitoshi Saito's favorite techniques. Here he secures his opponent's wrist with his right leg and applies pressure on the elbow with his left leg. The World Championships in Seoul, Saito against Cohen of the United States. He secures his opponent's elbow with his left leg and raises his right to lock the elbow. Saito faces Kotsman of Czechoslovakia. He enters into Ashigatame with his right leg. As Kotsman attempts to free his arm, Saito uses his left leg to fortify his hold and lock the elbow. To apply ude hishigi tegatame from a standing position, slip your left hand through his right armpit and grasp his left collar. Take hold of his wrist with your right hand and flip him over, twisting his arm behind his back to lock the elbow. Grasping his wrist, throw yourself down so that your opponent is forced to roll over. When your opponent is lying on his back, grab both legs and bring them over his head to restrain him. Grab his right arm with your right hand and apply pressure to the arm with your right knee. Shift your weight to lock the elbow. You can also apply the lock from a yoko shiho gatame by grabbing one of your opponent's wrists to twist the arm. Make sure to stop him from lying flat on his face by trapping his body between your legs so that you can keep him under control. Another way to apply te gatame to an opponent who's on his back is to attack from the legs. Remember to restrain his legs as fast as you can, then grab the wrist and use your body weight to bear down and lock the elbow. Wrap one leg over your opponent's shoulder and the other under the opposite armpit to trap his arm, as in sankaku gatame. This can be done from the front, the side or the rear. Straighten out or twist his arm to lock his elbow. Take advantage of your opponent's efforts to draw you up to wrap your legs around him in the sankaku gatame style. Straddle your opponent, who is on all fours, and wrap your legs around him in the sankaku gatame style. Throw yourself forward, forcing him to roll over and stretch his arm to lock the elbow. This is how to apply the lock from a yoko sankaku jime. After trapping your opponent's arm with a yoko sankaku jime, you can also lock the elbow of the other arm in this manner. After trapping your opponent's right arm with a yoko sankaku jime, you can apply the lock by bending the arm backwards. Bend the arm back so that the elbow forms a right angle. Ashigarami is a dangerous technique and is not allowed in randori or in competition. Force your opponent's legs apart with one leg and hook your other leg around one of them from behind to lock the knee. This video was produced to give you an understanding of the basic techniques and variations which make up the katame waza of Kodokan Judo. Consisting of holding, neck lock and arm lock techniques, katame waza are neither as flashy nor as brilliant as the nage waza. Properly executed, however, they will allow you to defeat your opponent instantaneously. Katame waza and nage waza are equally important, and practicing both will help improve your judo.